Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Ankush here from Alif Consulting. Today we are going to talk about Azure Virtual Desktop. Before going into the introduction, let's understand what we are going to cover in this video. So we're going to cover the introduction about the Azure Virtual Desktop. We're going to cover the benefits. We're going to cover the use cases. We're going to cover the management. We're going to cover the licensing requirement for the user sessions, and then we're going to cover about the cost, and then we're going to have a demos like calculating the pricing, deploying the session host, creating the workspace, application groups, and so on. And one more thing, all of this demos will be going to be have a separate video, so please be connected on us on the YouTube to see more videos on our AVD series. Well, let's start with the introduction. So AVD is a PaaS offering managed by Microsoft that allow administrator to configure, deploy, manage, and a scalable and flexible virtual desktop solution. So how it's difference? What is the difference like between basically a traditional remote desktop service form which you deployed on a server, and how basically let's create a difference here on the Azure Virtual Desktop. So what happen when you deploy a remote desktop farm, you are going to have a multiple components, like you're going to have a web server, you are going to have a session host, you are going to have a connection broker, and then you are going to have a licensing server, and then you're going to have a one more role to expose your remote desktop services to the external user or to the internet. But in the case of ABD, uh, in the case of Azure Virtual Desktop, it's not this is how it's works. So in this case, you don't need to worry about managing the correction broker. You don't need to worry about managing the session host. You don't need to worry about managing the licensing servers. You not need to worry about how you're going to expose your app AVD solution or the application to the internet. It's completely managed by Microsoft. So only thing what we need to manage is the session host server. So we need to deploy a session host server, and that's only the component which we need to manage, and the rest of the component basically will be taken care by the Microsoft. So that's the reason it's called as a platform uh, as a service, but it's also a combination of infrastructure as a service, which basically work as a host servers to offer the sessions to the end user. AVD enable administrator to publish the virtual desktop or the remote application from a single host, or creating an individual application group for the different set of the users. Now, the same way we do on the remote desktop server farm from a traditional way, where we create a application group and then we add the application inside the that group and we give the access to the user. Same way we can do on the AVD as well, but AVD have a different way of doing it, right? AVD have a workspace, and then AVD have a application group which basically integrate with the workspace, and from where user will be going to get the access, and then we can use Azure Active Directory to basically manage the access for that specific applications of the workspace as well. Well, here is the benefits of AVD over the desktop as a service. So it's a fully featured with all the rich functionality and scalable uh, with the Windows 10 and Windows 11 multi-session OS. So we can use Windows 10 and Windows 11 with the AVD as well. Deliver a virtualized and optimized Office 365 experience. Bring your own devices option allow to ease of the transition. So in this case, what is happen, let's say you don't want to give your users to your own laptops, right? You want to basically ask them to bring their own devices to access the official application. So through that you can implement the AVD, you can host your all the application inside the AVD, and then they can go simply on the browser to access the applications or the office applications, or maybe the other applications as well, like the Navision, or maybe the browser-based applications, or maybe the any in-house application which you have deployed. That you can basically do over the AVD. You can host your applications and allow them to basically do the works. Easy path of modernization and reduce the data center expenditure, right? That's true. So it's an easy way. You don't as a traditional way. What you need to do, you need to basically give the laptop to all the peoples. You need to uh, give the license. You need to buy the licenses for all the all the users, you need to buy rest of the other stuffs as well. But with the avd, it's basically a easy way for the modernizations and reduce the our uh, expenditure as well. Provide the extended support for legacy desktop support operating system hosting for the legacy application. Provide a rich work from home or alternate solution that's simple to use. So we have seen in the COVID lockdown, uh, people are start using the AVDs. People have start using the virtual desktop solution. So that's where AVD is basically become a little more popular, where a lot of people have started using it with the Office 365 licenses and allowing the users to work from home and from work from anywhere with the browser base, with only with their bring their own devices, and they can access all the Office applications, whatever application you want to host on the Azure Virtual Desktop solution. Well, this is how your architecture looks like. So in this case, you will see this is a hub and spoke topology where you are connecting with your subscription, where you have a desktop deployed, and then you do have the other subnets where you have your desktop deployed. So in this case, basically, and then you have Azure file and NetApp file integrated with your session host to give the profiles to user to store the user profile location. So this is how it looks like. Since it's completely managed by Microsoft. So web access, connection, gateway server, connection broker, diagnostic, and REST API are fully all of this control plane are something which is basically managed by the Microsoft and is a fully managed services, right? So here you can take the advantage of two things. You can take the advantage of your on-premise Active Directory, or you can also take the advantage of your Azure Active Directory as well. So you have a both options. Either you only want to go with the Azure AD, you don't want to use the Active Directory domain service. That's something you can do. But at the same time, if you want to take the leverage of both, you can do that as well by connecting the or by syncing the on-premise AD to the Azure AD over using the Azure AD Connect server, and then you can basically sync your authentications or sync your passwords between the both organization. At the same time, the desktops or the session host servers which you are going to host, they can also be part of your Active Directory domain service, or they can also be part of your Azure Active Directory. That's basically something which basically depends based on the business case. Either you only focusing on using the Azure Active Directory, you're also focusing, or you want to use the Azure Active Directory domain services to manage your host session servers or the desktop which you are deploying over the AVD solution. Well, here are some of the benefits of having the AVD only. So deliver the Windows 11 desktop and application virtually anywhere. It's simply one URL. You can access this around anywhere across the globe. You just need the internet connections. That's it. Built-in intelligent security. Deploy and scale in the minutes. Reduce the cost using the existing licenses. Right. If you have your RDS cals, or if you have your Windows, sorry, not a Windows actually, if you have your M365 licenses which already covered with the Windows licenses, you can use them with AVD solution. You don't need to buy a separate licenses for your Azure Virtual Desktop solution. Enable secure and productive remote work from any devices. Protect against outage to stay productive. Simplify IT's management. So these are some of the benefits of having the AVD solution on Azure. Here are the use case. So let's say if you want to set up a multi-session Windows 10 deployment, or Windows 10 or Windows 11 deployment that deliver a full Windows 10 or Windows 11 with scalability. That's something you can do. With AVD, you can have a two-way of uh, assigning the session to the user or assigning a desktop to the user. Either it can be a pooled, or either it can be a personal. So that's how basically you can use a one server to allow only for one user, or you can use a one session host to allow a session from for the multiple user, which basically act as a pooled session host, right? Virtualize M365 apps for enterprise and optimize it to run in the multi user virtual scenarios. So all of the apps basically which you use on the AVDs are optimized for AVD solutions, because when you select your image, you have options like either you want to use image with the O365 pre-installed. So all of them are basically optimized for AVD solutions. So all of them you can use to allow user to access those services in the multi-user virtual scenarios. Provide a Windows 7 desktop with free extended security updates. Bring your existing remote desktop services or Windows Server desktop or app to the computer. Virtualize both desktop and app. Manage Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows Server, Windows 7 desktop and app with a unified management experience. So these are the experience, or these are the use case where AVD become a solution which you can use to provide application access or the desktop access to the user. Well, let's talk about the management. So for the management, you will be see there is a two things. Uh, Basically, for the management perspective, there's a one section which you will be need to manage by you, and there is another thing which will be managed by the Microsoft. So let's go with the Microsoft managed services. So let's any kind of clients, any kind of connection brokers, any kind of management, gateway, diagnostic, load balancing thing will be taken care by the Microsoft. We don't need to worry about anything about that. And a part of that, a compute, storage, and networking thing will be taken care by the Microsoft. So the section basically which in the right side is the all of those things will be taken care by the Microsoft. Now let's come to the left and see what we are going to manage, right? So any kind of Windows enterprise sessions, Windows 12, or any kind of Windows session. Let's take an example, any kind of Windows sessions or any kind of apps which we want to host or which we want to basically use with the AVD solution. That's something we need to manage. We need to basically create those application compatible with the AVD solution, and we need to install them on the host servers or host session servers so that they can basically be available for the users. And then any kind of management policies, user density, user sizing, scaling policies, network policy, and user management and identity is something which we need to control. So it's kind of, I can say, is the 50-50. Some the major infrastructure part is already taken care by the Microsoft, but at the end, rest of the things like managing the sessions, managing the applications, policies, security policies, identity management is something which need to be taken care by you and your IT team who is basically managing the Azure Virtual Desktop solution. Well, here the Evd requirement for the user sessions. So if you have a server host created with the server operating systems, you need the RDS CALs with software insurance. If you want to use Windows 10, Windows 11, or Windows 7, you need to have a M365 licenses to use them on with the AVD. So here it's only mentioned about Windows 10, but we do have a Windows 11 image now available on the AVD solution, which we can use as a multi-session host as a personal image for the end user. So let's talk about the cost, how the cost basically is calculated. So there is a two steps or two points to be considered. First is the user access right, and second one is the infrastructure cost. So let's talk about the infrastructure cost first. So as I told you earlier in the slide, like when you having the AVD solutions, you only need to create this session host server. And when you're creating a session host server, that's include your compute, that's include your storage, and that's include your network, right? So all of those components are basically chargeable, and we need to basically pay for them, right? So that's a one thing. At the same time, the other one is basically about the licenses. So let's say if you have your RDS CALs or if you have your M365 licenses already available, definitely you can use them with the AVD solution. But at the same time, if you don't have them, and if you don't have RDS CAL or if you don't have M365 licenses available with the organization, you need to buy new licensing and you need to use them with the AVD solution. So this is how your cost basically calculated for the AVD solution. Let's move to the demo. So for this demo, in this specific demo I'm talking about, we're going to only see how we calculate the pricing of the AVD solution. So rest of the demos I will be going to cover, or I will be going to have a multiple videos for rest of the demos. So please follow us for the rest of the demos videos. Well, how basically we calculate the pricing for AVD solutions? For that, we need to go on the Azure Calculator, and we need to search for Azure Virtual Desktop. So as soon as you add it, you will be able to see there is a plenty of option or plenty of the information which you need to put to calculate the pricing, right? So first of all, you need to put the location where you are going to host your AVD solution. So let's say I want to use only the India location, and then what kind of type it's going to be. Either it's going to be a personal, or either it's going to be from the pooled. Now, what is the difference in between both? So let's say you have 100 user, and for the 100 user you want to give them up their personal machine on cloud so that they can only use that whenever they connect it. That you can do, but in this way, if you do this one, the basically the your solution is going to be a much expensive, right? So it's better to have the pooled type. But at the end of the day, if business say you need to have the dedicated machine for all the users, you can you do have that of options of that type available in the AVD solution, right? Now this is what we have selected as a type and the reason. Now next step is this scenarios configuration. Now first session is what kind of session we want. Either we want to have a single session on per host, or we want to have a multi session on the per host. So it's better to have a multi session, because as soon as you change it to the single session, this will be definitely going to increase your pricing, because in this case you're going to have a one session running on the one server, right? So let's go with the multi session, and then you can select what kind of workloads are there, or how your users are. So for that, if you click on this one, you will see if you have power user, you should have a one user per vCore. If you have a heavy user, you should have a two user per core. If you have a medium users, you should have a four user per core. If you have a light user, that should have a six user per core. So this is how the VM calculation or the VM sizing calculation happen. So if I take it's a medium user, right? That's a workload type I have selected, right? And it will be automatically calculating the size or how many instances you are looking for, right? Now another thing, you need to define what are the total numbers is numbers of users are going to be, right? Let's say I have 500 users, and all of them are only going to be use this AVD solution for 220 hours in a month, right? So that's my user configuration. Now the concurrency configuration, which is the very important step to calculate the AVD pricing, right? Now what is a peak concurrency and what is off peak concurrency? So peak concurrency tell us, or basically calculated how many users are going to be logged in at a one time during the business hours. So let's say it's going to be a 40% user will be going to use during the peak concurrency at the time, right? So let's put that. So as soon as you put your 40%, this is how it's calculated. So if you put it at a 1%, it's going to calculate as a peak currency as 100%. But for 50%, we need to go with this way only. Sorry, zero point 0.5, which means a 50% peak concurrency. And what is the off peak concurrency? I say after the business hour, only 50 users is going to be login. So that's something I have already set up with 0.05, which is the equal to the 5 user, sorry, 50 user, right? And now it's going to calculate how many instances you're looking for during the uh, peak concurrency, off peak concurrency, and how many instances you're looking for during the peak concurrency, right? And at the same time you do have a plenty of options. Like if you go with the higher size, automatically your instance count will be going to be changed. So it will be going to be calculated based on the workload type and based on the user which you have defined here. So your session host, or of the configuration of the session host, is going to be according to the requirement, or according to the configuration of of the users, peak concurrency, and the workload type, right? And then you do have a plenty of other options which you can use. Let's say if you use D8 V3, it will be going to calculate how many how many instance do you need during the peak concurrency and how many instance you need after the peak concurrency, right? So this is how it's calculating it, and you do have a plenty of other options or plenty of other series to be select according to the workload which you are going to be required, because there may be some application which is a GPU intensive, or there are some application which are the memory intensive. Then accordingly you can use or create your session server for them, a dedicated session server for them for the specific size, right? So you can select your instance sizing, and accordingly it's going to show you how many instances you are need during the peak concurrency and during the off peak concurrency, right? What is the next step? Now we selected the compute, we define the user configuration, we define what kind of user is going to be, how many user is going to be there, how many users is going to be work during the work hours, or how many users is going to be login or during the after work hours, right? Now the next step is going to be defining the storage, right? For defining the storage, you do have an option like what kind of disk you want to choose, right? Either you do have an option to use a standard, I I mean you do have an option to choose the premium one, and then accordingly you can select the size. So it's asking you to basically it's need a 9 disk, but if you want to increase those size you can increase that as well. But you will see the count of the disk is not getting increased because these are the predefined, or the number of the count which is required based on the VM configuration which you have selected, right? So by default, Windows machine create a 128 GB of the disk. So let's select that only. And then you do have options to see what kind of file storage you want to use. Now why file storage is needed, right? So the file storage is required in case of if you are using a user profile, or if you are storing the user profile and you're giving them a specific location where they can store their data whenever they are logging into the system, so that if the user log in after some time to the new host, they can get a same profile, right? So that's called a profiling inside the AVD. For that we need a file storage. For that we do have a two option. Either we can use Azure NetApps files, and we do have a premium file storage. Now what is the difference? So both of the solution have their own advantage, but if you are going with the NetApp, it's going to be a little more cost, but at the end of the day it's a secure solution. But because the connection between the NetApp file and the AVD is going to be happen over the VNet, right? But at the same time, if you need a less costly or lesser cost for this file storage solution, you should use the premium storage. And then you can define what is the size at data at rest. Let's say if I say if it's going to be uh, 1000 GB, and how much the size of the snapshot is going to be, let's say I say at the 500 of GB in the month. And then the next is basically about the bandwidth. If there any interconnection is going to be happen, you can define those settings as well for the inter region. And at the end we are going to get our per user cost calculation, right? So if you see cost per user section, there is a multiple section is going to be. So for the VM, it's showing us $2.09 per user on the VM, and then it's showing you how much you're going to pay for the disk per user, how much you're going to pay for file storage, how much you're going to pay for bandwidth, and what is your actual cost per user looks like only for the AVD solution overall infrastructure only, right? This it doesn't include any kind of licensing cost, it doesn't include any kind of M365 cost. So that's cost is separate from this cost, right? And how much your monthly cost is looks like for overall infrastructure, right? And then later and then you do have option to select the support if you want to select the standard support, or if you want to have a professional support direct. If you don't have any kind of uh, support available with your existing subscriptions, you want to use a new support for this, you can select that support and it will be automatically add into your current cost solution for AVD. And then this is how your total cost will be look like, right? So these are the way how you can select, or how you can basically calculate the pricing. But at the same time if you increase your peak concurrency, let's say it's saying I'm saying it as a 50%, but later on I figure it out, it's going to be 80% user is going to be login, right? In this case, if you will be see your instance count is automatically get increased, right? Your disk sizes automatically get increased, and your user price is automatically get increased because your currency has been increased, and that's how basically it's calculate the pricing for the AVD, right? Well, this is what I am going to cover in this demo. So we're going to have a further videos on the our rest of the demos. I hope you like this video. If you like, please click on like and subscribe for more upcoming AVD videos, and feel free to reach us. Thank you.